Hello, and welcome to Livewire Markets. I'm Hunsley, and in this episode of The Pitch, we're discussing small caps. To the unacquainted, small and micro cap stocks are risky, full of debt, and hard to pick. But for those who know that market inside and out, like Marcus Burns of Spheria Asset Management, unearthing the right winner can also make you very wealthy. Marcus, there are plenty of small cap fund managers like yourself out there who all want to add alpha. But what are maybe 2 or 3 things in your process that make your team different from the rest?
Thank you, Hans. Look, I think it's you're right. It's a competitive space. There's quite a few small cap managers in Australia. I think what we try to do is control for risk. As you said, there's a lot of names out there, a lot of good stories out there in small caps, a lot of great leaders. But we really focus on trying to pick stocks that will perform well through most cycles. So to that end, we focus on free cash flow generation, on strong balance sheets, and then lastly, we still believe valuations matter. So they're the 3 bedrocks of Spheria. And through a cycle, we think that gives you superior long-term returns.
Okay, so those are the 3 factors you pay the most attention to. If you had to pick one, what's your North Star? What's the non-negotiable trait that all potential holdings must have?
Cash flow generation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, simple as that. And it's interesting. We have we show investors these 2 charts showing like a 20-year history of if you just bought small caps that had positive free cash flow, like not even valuation, no balance sheets, just positive free cash flow, and compared it to stocks that had negative cash flow or lost money, and you just bought a portfolio of that, the difference in performance over the 20-year period is absolutely mind-blowing. So if it comes down to one thing, it'll be cash flow generation.
Okay, excellent. It's interesting, when the team around here talk to other small cap fund managers, they also like to point to the importance of a strong management team or founder-led teams. I know you talk about free cash flow generation just then, but how important is it to you when you go in to talk to teams of potential holdings and potential stocks you want to hold in your fund? How important is that strong management team?
Look, it is important, but I think a very famous investor once said that if you could choose a business or the management team, what would you choose? And I think you'd choose the business over the management team. They are really critical, and they can they of course take those cash flows and they reinvest them, or they do acquisitions, or they do buybacks. So the way management teams drive operational efficiency in a company and allocate capital, they're the 2 things that they should do day to day. Do determine the returns over a long period of time. But it's very easy to get sucked into a charismatic story from a charismatic leader, I think is the danger we'd flag here. So if a charismatic leader is not backed up by a sound business or a sound cash flow model, we'd just flag that. That could be a note of caution there.
Yeah, no, well, you'll never meet a pessimistic CEO, right, or a bearish CEO. As I mentioned there in the intro, obviously small and micro caps have a reputation for being a little riskier, a little more debt-laden, a little more challenging to navigate. But as somebody who is very immersed in that space, do you find that to be true or false?
I think as a general rule, I would have to say it's probably true. I mean, there's a lot of names. So you mentioned there's 192 names in the small cap index. There's probably several thousand that are micro caps that are listed in Australia. The vast majority of those, maybe 2/3 or more, don't make earnings or cash flow. So there's a lot of speculative names, particularly mining stocks or explorers, biotech stocks that are early stage, etc., that are burning up money. And so I think they are risky propositions for investors because you have to really know the story well. Is a balance sheet sufficient to carry that capital or that investment until it makes money? And so we pick and choose through that long list of names based on business quality, free cash flow generation, valuations. And I think if you can do that, also they're pretty poorly covered as well. So yes, whilst it's a risky place to be playing, the lack of research means if you do the work, you can actually find some really interesting names in there. So with the right process, I think you can get through a fairly turbulent market and find interesting opportunities.
Okay, let's put that work into practice. I wonder if you could tell us about maybe 2 previous winners, something that you invested in early and it's gone the distance, and maybe about one company you hope will become a future winner yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us show off, and then give you a forecast that hopefully will come to fruition.
I hope so too.
So we've look in both our micro cap and our small cap funds. We've got exposure to a company called Supply Network. The ticker is SNL. It's something we've talked about before on your network, and supplies bus and truck parts to the aftermarket in Australia. They're probably the leading player in that space, and it's very well run, and the management team there have been in place for over 15 years, and that's been a really great winner for our investors, compounded at 20-30% per annum for probably a decade now in terms of total return. And then a more recent one was a stock called Mader. Again, the founder's there as well, still as a chairman of the company. It does maintenance services to equipment on site for mining companies. And that's been an incredibly good growth story for many, many years and is now moving internationally from Australia into the US and Canada and seems to be succeeding overseas. So both those have been great winners for our smaller microcap funds. And picking our future winner, I'll probably fall back on a retailer called Universal Stores, which is targeted at the youth market. So it sells clothing to 15 to 25-year-olds. It's got roughly 100 stores in Australia, so it's quite immature. So it's got places to go in Australia and I guess potentially eventually internationally. Great cash flow generation, a great management team that's driven like-for-like sales through good and bad times. And it's also very innovative. Like it not only has the Universal Store brand, it's launched a new brand called Perfect Stranger. And so they're constantly innovating new sub-brands to push out growth. So still quite immature, great quality management team, and I think a good future ahead of it.
Perfect. All right, Marcus Burns of Spheria Asset Management, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for The Pitch. If you enjoyed that interview, you can subscribe to the Livewire Markets website as well as our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.